This is the Starry Night. It's one of the most famous, most beloved, and frankly, most valuable paintings on the planet. It hangs in the Museum of Modern Art in New York, a cornerstone of modern art seen by millions. And the man who painted it, Vincent van Gogh, he considered it a failure. He wasn't just being modest. He genuinely believed many of his masterpieces were just rubbish, studies gone wrong and setbacks on his artistic journey. He was, by all accounts, his own harshest critic, completely consumed by a relentless, punishing self-doubt. But why? Why did an artist of such staggering genius see only flaws in the work that would one day captivate the entire world? The answer isn't just art history. It's about a deeply human battle with perfectionism, a desperate need for approval, and the crippling fear of failure. A battle that pretty much every single one of us has fought. Today, we're exploring the psychological reasons behind Van Gogh's intense self-criticism. And in doing so, we'll uncover a powerful, and maybe even comforting, lesson about the true value of our work and of ourselves. The anatomy of a struggling artist. To get why Van Gogh was so hard on himself, you have to understand the life that forged him. His story isn't just about a tortured artist. It's a story of one failure after another in almost every part of his life, long before he ever became famous. His entire artistic career was incredibly short, just 10 years, and it only began after a whole string of other jobs went down in flames. He tried being an art dealer, a teacher, and even a lay preacher, but every single attempt ended in him being fired or just giving up, deepening his sense of not belonging anywhere. By the time he decided, at 27, to finally become an artist, he was already carrying the weight of a life spent not being good enough. His own parents worried about him, and Vincent, feeling totally misunderstood, reacted like an angry young man. This pattern of rejection followed him right into his art. His first big, ambitious painting was The Potato Eaters, finished in 1885. He wanted it to be his masterpiece, a gritty, honest look at peasant life that would prove he had what it took. He poured everything into it, making dozens of preliminary studies. He wrote to his brother Theo, his lifelong financial and emotional rock, that he wanted the painting to feel like manual labor, to smell of the earth. The response? It was brutal. The Paris art world hated it, finding its dark, muddy tones totally out of fashion compared to the bright colors of Impressionism. Even his friend, the artist Anthony van Rappert, savaged it. He wrote to Vincent, essentially asking, "You can't be serious with this, right?" The criticism crushed him. And yet, years later, Van Gogh would still write that he considered The Potato Eaters, "after all, the best thing I did." This becomes a crucial pattern, a deep personal belief in his own work, constantly at war with what others thought and his own crippling doubts. His dream of starting an artists' community in the south of France, in his famous Yellow House, also ended in total disaster. He convinced the painter Paul Gauguin, an artist he deeply admired, to join him. But their personalities clashed, and the collaboration he dreamed of ended with the infamous, tragic fight that led to Van Gogh mutilating his own ear. This breakdown marked the start of his steepest mental decline, leading him to voluntarily check into the asylum at Saint-Rémy-de-Provence. It was here, in the asylum, surrounded by his demons, but also at the absolute peak of his powers, that he painted the Starry Night. His life was a catalogue of professional failure, social rejection, and profound mental struggle. His self-criticism wasn't born in a vacuum. It was the direct result of a life that had told him he was a failure, time to time. The Psychology of Perfectionism. Okay, so that's the what. But to understand the why, we need to go deeper into the psychology of Vincent's mind. His letters, mostly to his brother Theo, give us an incredible window into his thoughts. And they reveal a man tormented by what modern psychology would call maladaptive perfectionism. This wasn't just a healthy drive to be good. It was an obsessive, all-consuming need for an impossible standard of flawlessness. In his eyes, anything less than that ideal was a failure. He once wrote to a critic who had praised his work, "It is absolutely certain that I shall never do important things." This wasn't him being humble. He genuinely, truly believed it. He was eaten up by a self-doubt that would sometimes just explode. This perfectionism was tied to a powerful and deeply human need for approval. He craved validation, not just from the art world, but from the people he respected. The harsh criticism of the potato eaters was a blow precisely because it came from a friend. When his own brother Theo offered gentle criticism of the Starry Night, suggesting that the search for style was getting in the way of the real sentiment of things, it likely just fed into Vincent's own anxieties about the piece. And this gets us to the heart of why he seemed to dislike his most famous works. Van Gogh's artistic ideal was to paint from nature, to capture the truth of what was right in front of him. But many of his most iconic paintings, including the Starry Night, were painted from memory or imagination. He painted it from his room in the asylum, adding an imaginary village. In his own mind, this was a betrayal of his artistic principles. It was an indulgence, an abstraction. He even referred to his period exploring abstraction with Gauguin as a delusion. A brick wall. He literally saw the stars as being too big, an exaggeration that broke his own rule of staying true to reality. He then connects this directly to the Starry Night, writing that he'd let himself get led astray into reaching for stars that are too big, and called it another failure. When he bundled up paintings to send to Theo from the asylum, he initially held the Starry Night back, calling it a study that says nothing to me. The very thing that makes the painting a masterpiece to us. Its raw, unfiltered expression of emotional turmoil and wonder was, to him, its greatest flaw. What Van Gogh's failures teach us. So, what can we take away from this tragic disconnect between how Van Gogh saw himself and, well, reality? His story is more than just a sad tale. It's a profound and practical lesson about creativity, self-worth, and what it means to succeed. First, it teaches us about the double-edged sword of perfectionism. The same drive that pushed Van Gogh to create over 2,000 works of art in a decade also convinced him that most of it was worthless. His story is a powerful reminder that healthy striving is about growth, while toxic perfectionism is really just a fear of failure. It forces us to ask ourselves, is my drive for excellence pushing me forward, or is it just paralyzing me with self-doubt? Second, Van Gogh's life completely redefines what failure even means. He famously sold just one painting in his lifetime, The Red Vineyard. Now, there's some evidence he may have sold or bartered a few others. But let's be clear, by the standards of his day, he was a commercial failure. And yet, those constant setbacks were the very fire in which his unique genius was forged. It teaches us that failure isn't the opposite of success. It's a necessary part of the journey. And maybe the most important lesson here is that we have to decouple our self-worth from our achievements. Van Gogh died believing he was an insignificant failure. He had no clue he would become one of the most beloved artists in history. His story is the ultimate proof that our own judgment isn't always the most accurate measure of our value. We are often the worst judges of our own work because we know about all the flaws, the gap between the grand vision and the final product. We see the messy process, right? The self-doubt, the compromises. The rest of the world just sees the final product. Van Gogh saw the stars that were too big, the exaggeration. We see a breathtaking expression of the human soul yearning for something more. The tragic irony of Van Gogh's life is that his greatest weaknesses were actually his greatest strengths. The emotional intensity that caused him so much pain was the very thing that allowed him to paint with such profound feeling. The failure to paint realistically was what allowed him to paint truthfully, to show us not just what the world looks like, but what it feels like to be alive in it. His intense self-criticism, his feeling of being a failure, is what makes him so painfully and so enduringly human. It's a feeling that every creative person, every person who has ever tried to make something new or put a piece of themselves into the world, has felt. We look in the mirror and wonder if we're good enough, if what we do even matters. Van Gogh's story might not have clear answers, but it sure gives us a wild perspective. It tells us to keep going, even when we feel like a failure. It reminds us that our impact is often far greater than we can possibly imagine. He had no idea how worthy he was, but his legacy is a testament to the fact that our own harsh judgment is not the final word. The work we create, the love we give, the effort we put forth, it has a life of its own, far beyond our self-doubt. Van Gogh thought he was painting failures. In reality, he was painting his way to immortality. If this story gave you something to think about, hit that like button and let me know in the comments. Do you think perfectionism is a gift or a curse? And if you want more deep reflections like this, subscribe and share this video to spread the thought. Thank you, and see you next time.